The 1927 New York Yankees are regarded as one of the greatest baseball teams of all time. They had Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and they won back-to-back World Series championships in 1927 and 1928. Yet from 1929 to 1931, one team would beat the powerhouse New York teams for the American League pennant. This is the story of the mid-1920s to mid-1930s Philadelphia Athletics, better known as the Second Athletics Dynasty. Its story began more than a decade earlier when Athletics manager and owner Connie Mack built the first Philadelphia Athletics Dynasty. From 1910, the team would win 4 of 5 pennants and 3 World Series championships. The team had the legendary $100,000 infield, which some historians consider the greatest infield of all time. It had Stuffy McInnis, Jack Barry, and all-time greats Eddie Collins and Frank "Home Run" Baker. The group was so dominant that in 1913, all 4 infielders finished in the top 9 of the MVP voting. In 1914, the team won the American League pennant and was heavily favored to win the World Series. However, the team faced the miracle Boston Braves, and the Athletics were swept in the series. The shocking defeat shook the team's foundations. Around this time, salaries also rose because of the new and upstart Federal League, and soon, Mack decided to break up the team. The Athletics fell from perennial pennant winners to perennial last placers. Just when the team was getting used to mediocrity, Mack would have another shot at greatness. This began in 1925 when a trio of rookies, all of them future all-time greats, joined the team. These rookies were pitcher Lefty Grove, age 25, catcher Mickey Cochrane, age 22, and backup catcher and future first baseman Jimmie Foxx, age 17. They joined sophomore Al Simmons, age 23. They would form the core of the dynasty. Simmons was arguably the best player on the 1925 team. He batted .387 with 43 doubles, 12 triples, 24 home runs, and 129 RBIs. He led the league with 253 hits and 392 total bases. He had a 6.6 WAR and finished second in MVP voting. Grove had a 10-12 record and league-leading totals of 116 strikeouts and 131 walks. He had a 2.1 WAR. Cochrane batted .331 with 6 home runs and 55 RBIs. He had a 1.8 WAR and finished 10th in MVP voting. Foxx was still a utility player, and had 6 hits in 9 at-bats and a 0.2 WAR. The team's best pitcher was Slim Harris, who had a career year with a 19-12 record and a 6.0 WAR. The 1925 Athletics finished a strong second, 8.5 games behind the Washington Senators. With an 88-64 record, it was the Athletics' first winning season since 1914. In 1926, Slim Harris was traded mid-season to the Red Sox. This catapulted Lefty Grove to the role of team ace. Grove responded by having a 7.5 WAR and led the league in ERA and strikeouts. Cochrane had a .273 average to go with 8 home runs and 47 RBIs. Simmons batted .341 with 19 home runs and 110 RBIs. He was 5th in the MVP voting, while Foxx remained a part-time player and batted .313 in 32 at-bats. On the other hand, the Yankees duo of Gehrig and Ruth was beginning to dominate the league. They won the American League pennant and faced the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series. The Yankees, however, would lose in 7 games. In 1927, the Philadelphia Athletics were joined by 2 legendary and Inner Circle Hall of Famers. Eddie Collins, arguably the best player in the first Athletics dynasty, returned to the team. He was soon followed by Ty Cobb, who left the Tigers after a gambling scandal. While Simmons remained the team's best hitter with a .392 average, Cobb was second with .357. Cochrane was third with .338. Collins, in just over 200 at-bats, batted .336. Jimmie Foxx appeared in first base for the first time and hit his first home runs as a major league player. He batted .323 with 6 doubles, 5 triples, 3 home runs, and 20 RBIs in 130 at-bats. Grove became a 20-game winner for the first time. The Athletics won 91 games but were 19 games behind the juggernaut Yankees. For many historians and fans, the 1927 New York Yankees team is the greatest baseball team of all time. The Yankees finished the season with an exclamation point by sweeping the Pirates in 4 games. The 1928 Athletics saw the addition of yet another all-time great and future Hall of Famer, Tris Speaker, who decided to join his close friend Ty Cobb. This brought the number of future Hall of Famers on the team to 7: Cobb, Speaker, Collins, Cochrane, Grove, Simmons, and Foxx. This number becomes 8 if you add manager Connie Mack. Cobb remained a starter and batted .323. As part-time players, Collins batted .303, and Speaker hit .257. Strangely enough, Foxx was mainly a third baseman in 1928. Still, he had his first great season. He batted .328 with 29 doubles, 10 triples, 13 home runs, and 79 RBIs. He finished the season with a 4.9 WAR and 11th in MVP voting. Simmons led the team with a .351 average and 107 RBIs. Grove had a dominant season and led the league in WAR and wins. He also led the league in strikeouts for the 4th season in a row. But the team's best player was arguably Cochrane, who won his first MVP award. The team's young nucleus was peaking and was ready to challenge the Yankees. The team was in first place as late as September. However, after just one day in first place, they were swept by New York in a doubleheader and never caught the Yankees. The Yankees won the 1928 pennant and swept the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series. New York had won 8 consecutive World Series games. It seemed there was no stopping the Yankees' juggernaut. Both Cobb and Speaker retired at the end of the 1928 season, while Collins remained as a player coach until 1930. In 1929, Foxx finally became a starter as a first baseman. He joined fellow stars Cochrane and Simmons in the starting lineup. Simmons remained the team's main offensive force, leading the Athletics in hits, average, and home runs. Foxx was runner-up to him in all 3 categories. Simmons also led the American League in RBIs. Grove, the team's ace, won 20 games and 2/3 of the pitching Triple Crown. He led the league in win-loss percentage, ERA, and strikeouts. He also had a 7.3 WAR. Grove's teammate George Earnshaw had a 5.7 WAR and led the league with 24 wins. This essentially gave the Athletics a second ace. Rube Wahlberg won 18 games but lost a league-leading 11 games. He had the second highest pitching WAR with 6.3. At various points in the dynasty's run, the team also had excellent support from others such as Max Bishop, Mule Haas, Bing Miller, Jack Quinn, and Jimmy Dykes. With incredible contributions from all over the lineup, Philadelphia finally overcame the New York Yankees juggernaut. The team won 104 games, 18 games ahead of the Yankees. In the World Series, the team met the Chicago Cubs. Mack employed an unusual lineup in the series. The Cubs' lineup was mainly right-handed. Thus, Mack started only right-handed pitchers during the series. 2 of his best starters, Grove and Wahlberg, were in the bullpen. Veteran Howard Emke started Game 1 while Earnshaw got the nod for Game 2. Grove had 2 saves while Wahlberg came in relief and won the series-clinching Game 5. The Athletics won the World Series 4-1. In 1930, the Athletics' core offensive trio of Cochrane, Simmons, and Foxx was firmly in place in the lineup. Cochrane remained a steady presence in managing the pitching staff. Foxx batted .335 with 37 home runs and 156 RBIs. Simmons, however, arguably remained the team's best hitter. After several close runner-up finishes, he finally won his first batting title with .381. He also led the league in runs scored. Simmons had 41 doubles, 16 triples, 36 home runs, and a team-leading 165 RBIs. He finished second in the MVP voting behind Joe Cronin of the Senators. Grove, on the other hand, anchored the rotation and was arguably baseball's best pitcher. He won the pitching Triple Crown with 28 wins, a 2.54 ERA, and 209 strikeouts. He also led the league in WAR with 10.4 and saves with 9. George Earnshaw won 22 games, though he led the league with 139 walks. The team won 102 games, 8 games ahead of the second-place Washington Senators and 16 games ahead of the Yankees. The team faced the St. Louis Cardinals and their fabled Gashouse Gang in the World Series. Grove won 2 games and had a 1.42 ERA while Cochrane hit a home run in the first 2 games. Philadelphia won the series 4-2. Earnshaw also won 2 games. In 1931, the Athletics won the pennant and 100 games for the 3rd consecutive season. The team won 107 games, 13.5 games ahead of the second-place Yankees. The team looked poised for a World Series three-peat. It was, after all, probably the best team in the dynasty. Grove had arguably the best season of his career. He led the league in strikeouts for the 7th consecutive season. He also won his 2nd consecutive pitching triple crown with 31 wins, a 2.06 ERA, and 175 strikeouts. He led the league in win-loss percentage, complete games, and shutouts. For his efforts, Grove was awarded the MVP award. Simmons won his 2nd consecutive batting title with .390 and finished 3rd in the MVP voting. The 1931 edition was the first World Series wherein players wore numbers on the back of their jerseys, something the Athletics pioneered. It was also a rematch of the previous year, and both lineups were mostly intact. The two teams alternated wins. Simmons hit .333 with 2 home runs and 8 RBIs, while Foxx batted .348 with 1 home run and 3 RBIs. Grove had a 2-1 record, 16 strikeouts, and a 2.42 ERA. Among the stars, only Cochrane underperformed as he batted an anemic .160. Ultimately, however, the St. Louis Cardinals won the championship, 4-3. The consequences of this loss would be felt in the coming few years. In 1932, the Athletics won 94 games but finished 13 games behind the New York Yankees. The previous 3 seasons Philadelphia had won over 100 games and won the AL pennant. Both streaks ended in 1932. Still, the team was a powerhouse led by first baseman Jimmie Foxx. He narrowly lost the batting title but led the league in home runs with 58 and RBIs with 169. He also led the league in WAR, runs scored, slugging, OPS, and total bases. Foxx was named the season's MVP. Simmons had a 4.3 WAR and led the league in hits. Cochrane had a 6.1 WAR. He became the first catcher to have 100 RBIs and score 100 runs in a season. He finished 9th in MVP voting. Grove led all pitchers with a 9.5 WAR. He had a 25-10 record and led the league in ERA and shutouts. Despite having a young and exceptional team, Mack had to make a decision. The Yankees were on the rise again. It was the 3rd consecutive season that New York led all of baseball in team on-base percentage. The Senators, too, were improving, thus making winning the pennant even more difficult. Worse, the Great Depression had wreaked havoc on the team's finances. Salaries were rising while ticket prices and attendance were dropping. As owner, he had to choose between survival and championships. Mack decided to slowly break up the team. The first to go was Al Simmons. At the end of the 1932 season, Simmons, Jimmy Dykes, and Mule Haas were traded to the Chicago White Sox for $100,000. In 1933, the Athletics finished 3rd with a 79-72 record, 19.5 games behind the pennant-winning Senators. It certainly wasn't the fault of the team's stars. Cochrane had a 6.2 WAR and led the league in on-base percentage with .459. He finished 15th in MVP voting. Foxx won the Triple Crown with a .356 average, 48 home runs, and 163 RBIs. He also led the league in WAR, OPS, and total bases. It was the 2nd consecutive season that Foxx exceeded 400 bases in a season. Grove led the league in pitching WAR with 8.4. He also led in wins with 24 and in win-loss percentage with .750. He finished 5th in MVP voting. On December 12, 1933, Mack made 3 major trades. Grove, Rube Wahlberg, and Max Bishop were traded to the Boston Red Sox for Bob Klee, Rabbit Worsler, and $125,000. On the same day, he traded Mickey Cochrane to the Detroit Tigers for Johnny Pasek and $100,000. Later, and also on the same day, he traded pitcher George Earnshaw and Johnny Pasek to the Chicago White Sox for Charlie Berry and $20,000. During the off-season, Mack also traded other players such as Tony Freitas, Gowell Clazett, Rip Radcliffe, and George Dettori. With the fire sale almost complete, the Athletics ceased to be competitive. In 1934, they finished 5th with a 68-82 record. The following season, they'd be at the bottom of the standings with a 58-91 record. At the end of the 1935 season, Mac finally traded his last and probably the franchise's greatest hitter, Jimmie Foxx. Foxx and Johnny Markham were traded to the Boston Red Sox for George Savino, Gordon Rhodes, and $150,000. In 1936, with all the stars gone, the Athletics would again finish last with an even worse 53-100 record. The dynasty had ended. Over the next 2 decades, the team would be in a steady decline punctuated by a few hopeful seasons. But by 1954, the team was sliding into bankruptcy. At the end of the season, the Philadelphia Athletics would be sold and become the Kansas City Athletics. The franchise would win its next pennant and World Series in 1972. Thank you for watching. Which team was better and why? The Grove, Cochrane, Foxx, Simmons Athletics teams or the Yankees teams led by Gehrig and Ruth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It helps a lot. Thank you.